Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here, and welcome to another review. And now I'm looking at Rocksmith, which came out in parts of the world except Europe in 2011, but in Europe we didn't get it until 2012. Now, it's not absolutely certain as to what caused the delay there, but one possibility is that here in the UK, we have, or at the very least at the time had, an unsigned band called Rocksmith who claimed that they had a trademark on their band's name, and of course there was this game named exactly the same thing. So it's possible that that legal issue may have had to have been sorted out. But for whatever reason, myself in the UK and indeed anyone in Europe was not able to get hold of a copy until 1992. Now, although the original version released outside of Europe only catered for guitar, a later chargeable update allowed it to support bass. This European version, however, allowed guitar and bass right from the get-go, hence the reason there's that there. Now, Rocksmith works a bit like the Guitar Hero and Rock Band series in as much as you get a highway with notes and chords coming towards you. However, unlike those games which used replica instruments, with not counting the certain aspects of the pro modes in Rock Band 3, which I reviewed not so long ago, Rocksmith allows you to plug in virtually any real guitar or bass guitar. And Rocksmith actually came with a specific cable known as a real tone cable, and it was also possible to get real tone cables separately, so a second person could play along on the same console. Online play in that way is not possible. The lag would have just been horrendous, according to what Ubisoft had said previously on the forums whenever someone had picked had suggested that. But there are if you look at the back, you'll see that there were over 50 songs on disc, and there's a selection of those that are included. In some versions of Rocksmith that were available when this came out even included an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. guitar. This was, I believe, while it was still specifically for guitars and didn't cater for bass, but I'm not absolutely sure of that. I don't recall there ever being any version of this that came with any kind of bass guitar, which is a bit of a shame. But the way it works is that in-game you'd get the odd notes here and there, and the game would pick up on how well you were playing the certain phrases, and if you consistently played them well, then the game would automatically pick up on this and level it up, so it'd be adding more notes that weren't previously there before, and until you maxed out the phrase riff or whatever and were playing every note that you heard on the original recording. Yes, each song in the Rocksmith library uses original studio recordings. For the most part, guitar tuning wise, the two main tunings used in it are E standard, which is EADGBE, and drop D, which is DADGBE. But there are two songs on disc that have two bass parts, which there's Blur's song 2, for instance. The bass part is E flat standard, and I believe there's a Muse song called Unnatural Selection, which is open G, which is DGDG. Apart from those two exceptions on disc, the tunings used in this Rocksmith game are either E standard or drop D, the latter being DADGBE. I can't remember whether I actually said that previously. And another thing I forgot to mention about, once you've started to build up riffs enough that you start seeing chords, it'll actually start to name the chords. So you might see C, E minor, F sharp minor 11, D major 7th, all that kind of thing. And anyone who knows their music will know exactly what all that means. While Rocksmith is not not suitable as a total replacement for proper tuition, what it does do is make the learning process much more fun, and you're not just playing seemingly random notes on the same 4 notes on just one string, for instance, which gets very boring after a while. So the Rocksmith can help relieve the monotony of that kind of thing, and there are actually some rather amusing but also educational games in something called the Guitarcade. I mean, what one particularly popular one is, I believe it's called Land of the Dead, and if you played House of the Dead, the arcade game in which you used a light gun to shoot zombies as they came towards you, it's a bit like that. Only instead of using a gun to shoot them, you defeat a zombie by playing the chord depicted on the screen. And if you land it, if you play the chord correctly, then the zombie gets defeated. That's worth pointing out, particularly if you've got a more modern LCD television. Then there might be some audio/video lag, but Rocksmith comes with calibration settings to help ease that, and it also comes up with an on-screen recommendation about if you can plug it into something else that goes into the console or PC or Apple Mac, rather than straight into it, although it is possible under certain circumstances to have success plugging the guitar directly into or bass into the computer or console with the provided real tone cable. It's just that if you can do it in the way suggested on screen, then it could potentially help you to overcome lag issues even more. And while it's a reasonably good set list for this early title, and I seem to recall just over 140 songs were released as downloadable content between the original release of Rocksmith and when Rocksmith 2014 edition came out in October of 2013. There are some issues with the actual interface. I mean, the interface of Rocksmith of this first Rocksmith is a bit of a chore, to say the least. It's not very intuitive at all, and you actually have to unlock songs as you progress in terms of the songs that are on disc, and it sort of has this interface where you're playing in front of a crowd, and even though the crowd look like they've been digitized from real people, something about them doesn't look quite right. All the same, and it's a bit cheesy, if the truth be told. Well, and what happens is on your guitaring journey, there are also some lessons about specific techniques that you can have a go at, and when you're just learning by playing songs, Rocksmith can actually recommend things. And if you've got any downloadable content and one of those songs is deemed more suitable than the equivalent on disc one, then it will take that into account and suggest one of those instead. At the time of Rocksmith coming out, each downloadable song usually costs £2.39 each. Although some related packs, like you might get 3, 4, 5 song packs from either within a similar genre or even by the same artist, then you can pay for those packs and get all of the songs within it at a reduced price compared to buying them separately. How much it would cost depends entirely on how many songs were in the pack. as well as interface issues, sometimes there could be tuning issues where you might be called upon to suddenly switch to a song where you're required to retune from E standard to drop D and then instantly back after that song's finished. That kind of thing can be a pain, especially if you've got a certain kind of bridge on your guitar. I mean, fixed bridge guitars wouldn't be quite such a problem. If you've got a floating tremolo bridge or anything like that, then it can be a pain to detune even just one string in this way. I mean, that's another thing that got fixed in the aforementioned follow-up Rocksmith 2014 edition, which I do intend to look at in a later video. And another thing, here's an example. Sorry, the light's in the way. Here's how the on-screen highway roughly looks in the game, and you see notes coming towards you. Now, one thing that always bothered me about the string layout in game is that the default setting is actually with the highest string being displayed at the bottom, and with the 5 strings above it gradually edging towards the lowest and thickest string, whereas in guitar tablature, or tab for short, you usually have the lowest / thickest string at the bottom and work upwards. And although you can actually switch the order, trying to find the actual option to do that unless it comes up as a tip is a royal pain. And until it came up as a tip, I had no idea where in the menus that option was. And as I said before, the interface is not particularly user friendly, and the menu options are not really that well laid out or particularly explanatory at times. That too is another thing that got severely overhauled and fixed in Rocksmith 2014 edition. But again, that's another story for another video. And here's an example of one of the mini games. I can't remember what this one was called now. And there's also a variation on the ducks game where you shot ducks on a shelf. I think you recall you had to play either a particular note or on a particular string, and the colour of the string and where the duck actually was, or something along those lines, would determine which fret you had to press that particular string down on prior to playing it. And as you progress, you gradually unlock different effects pedals, and you can customize your tone. Although one thing that's worth pointing out is that when a tone is set for a particular song, it stays active throughout the whole song, even if it's switched to other things in the original audio. That is also something that leaves a rather mixed response to people who've used this software. Because if you've got one that switches from clean to distortion and then back to clean for a particular section, it's just going to stay the same thing on or off, possibly the distortion on all the whole time, and it can be a bit of a problem when playing along to the song. Rocksmith 2014 later added an option where the default option where it would automatically switch tones for you as the song suggested, which made it far more bearable. Although you could still switch it back to manual control in that follow-up if you so wished. But at least in that one, the option was there to have either one or the other, whereas here you're stuck with it being one effect throughout the whole song. I mean, one thing I like about the idea of unlocking the amps is that they're also based on existing amp manufacturers like Boss and so and so forth. So it can also act as a try before you buy. So if you wanted to buy the real thing for playing the instrument outside of the game, then you'd actually have a good idea of how your guitar or bass would sound with it before you financially committed to the pedal in question. So from that point of view, it's a pretty good idea. So all in all, Rocksmith set the ball rolling for making guitar and bass playing and especially learning it far less painful than it might otherwise have been. I mean, if you've been learning with a teacher, then Rocksmith could potentially be an add-on aid to the teacher's teachings, and it's certainly not a total replacement for a teacher. I mean, there are some aspects of guitar playing that are not even touched upon in this, and there are no lessons for them either. So there are some gaping holes, some of which got addressed in the aforementioned follow-up, whereas some are even missing from that. But because of that follow-up, this particular original Rocksmith would only really be bought nowadays by anyone who wanted to export all except 5 of the songs from the on-disc set list of this to be able to play them in Rocksmith 2014, because whichever computer or console you'd be playing this on, the moment you played it for the first time under your set gamer profile, it would, if you went on to Rocksmith 2014 on the same platform, then, or indeed, if in the case of console, if you're on the follow-up to that console within the same family, for instance, if you played Rocksmith on Xbox 360 and then progressed to Xbox One for Rocksmith 2014 edition and was still using the same gamer profile on both machines, then it would automatically detect that you'd played the first Rocksmith, and when you first put Rocksmith 2014 in, it would come up with a prompt asking if you wanted to export all except 5 of the songs from the on-disc version of this Rocksmith to play them in Rocksmith 2014, and that would have required a one-off payment of £7.99. That would be to cover the transfer licenses, because on-disc songs have different licensing conditions, because of the songs that appear on disc in this are licensed for use in this game only. So before the exportable songs were permitted to be in the export pack, Ubisoft had to get permission for the export of the affected songs to happen, and that's why 5 of the songs cannot be played outside of this first Rocksmith, because in those 5 instances they couldn't get that kind of permission, and therefore those 5 songs cannot be exported and cannot be played outside of this game. So what's my verdict on this first Rocksmith? Well, I would give it 7 out of 10. I mean, it set the ball rolling and it is reasonably innovative, but it's just let down by some irritations and some potential lag issues, and of course that some strange choices with regards to default settings, and of course the overall interface being more of a chore to use than was really necessary. It needed the interface really needed a bit more thought to it before the game was released. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this review. Catch you on another one soon. Texie88 out.